Hello, everyone. Some of you might already know, might recognize me from Anistic. I run a kind of a 20-person carbon accounting company in Oxford, helping larger companies really cut down their carbon emissions. But you've got a problem. As the companies grow, Anistic's not my first company. As they grow, the admin burden goes up, and I'm not a big fan of admin. So we started using AI to try and help us to reduce the amount of admin we needed to do, and it kind of developed, and eventually we span it out into something called Draftr, okay? So we kind of put all the AI functions together, and we came up with Draftr. I'd like to show you quickly what Draftr can do for you if it's helpful for your business. I hope it will. I hate admin. I don't know, maybe you love it, but let's show you what it can do. Start with, this is what you get when you sort of fire up Draft. You get a dashboard, and it just tells you what's going on in the day. It's got what your priorities are, who's in the office that day, what's happening with the various kind of departments that you've got. And because it's AI, it knows about HR, it knows about finance. It can link to HubSpot, it can link to QuickBooks, it can link to Xero. So you can go out and get the kind of real information about your business, what it's doing. You can chat, so you can go in here and go, what's my diary looking like this week, and it can give you real answers. We use this. Everything you're seeing here, we use in Anistic. And last night I was using the finance stuff to do some really quite complicated queries on my, financial system for Anistic. Say, what is the problem with this cell versus this cell? It looks like the rent in this was misallocated. You can do all that. So, that's the chat, and you can see it coming up here. Other things you've got that you get with the basic system, you've got Alex, which is, your kind of personal assistant. Everyone gets one of those. That's very, very useful. You've got an IT manager, which gives you a bunch of tools, admin manager, a whole bunch of electronic document signing, filing, stuff like that. And you've got an office manager, which manages really who's in, who's out, org charts and stuff like that. So let me give you a whistle-stop tour of some of those. Alex is your PA. That's your kind of go-to, and Alex kind of sits above all of the other agents that we run. And there's currently, I think we're releasing 11 in full release. Others are in beta form, and we've got 2 or 3 more sort of up our sleeves that we're currently working on. So you've got email triage. Start with all the emails that come in. We'll go through a filtering system so that you can actually put them into buckets, so that you know which ones are most important, which ones are least important. And it works with Gmail. And Draftr never sends emails out. It just prepares drafts for you, and it replies to emails for you. The hyperscalers do that. Your Googles and your Microsofts do that. This links to Google and Microsoft, and the big difference is Draftr knows about your business, okay? It knows about your team, it knows about your business, it knows about your files, it knows about your policies. And so therefore you kind of get, in real world use, you get a better experience, a better reply using Draftr than you tend to do with kind of Gmail or Outlook 365. But it links into both of those. So, don't worry about that. So we've got the triage there. Second thing, you've got to-do lists built in here. This is kind of useful. I won't dwell on that, but you've got all the kind of what to do today, tomorrow, etc. You've got meeting schedulers. Now this replaces for us we used to use Calendly, but in the meeting scheduler, you can set up things like, if you want to book a meeting with me, click this link. That's what the meeting scheduler is all about. And you've got upcoming meetings, because it also joins your Teams meetings, your Zoom meetings, and your Google Meets, and it records them for you. Then it condenses them down, and it sends you all the minutes from the meetings. Lovely. Really kind of, jolly useful. That's the first thing it does. Other things it does, this is your PA. It sends you every morning a kind of an update about what your day is going to be like. What's your diary looking like, some, sort of stats, etc. And, what to expect during the day. It also sends you a week. So, at the start of the week, it will say, look, hey, happy Sunday. This is what's going on. And then this is quite useful, actually, the meeting prep. Before meetings, it sends you a note saying, by the way, you've got a meeting coming up. Yeah. Here's the background to it. And if you've got an email chain going on behind it, it puts it in there. Similarly, if it can find details on the company itself, it will put them in there. And this is useful because I'm sure you're way more prepared than me. But basically, sometimes I rush a bit into meetings, guilty secret. And, you want someone to say, by the way, this is what the meeting's about. This is the background. This is who it's with. Okay. So that's all of Alex functions. The IT manager, well, let's have a look at that. It basically gives you a bunch of tools that we find useful. So you can click in here. You've got these tools up here. They're quite sweet to use, actually. They're developed for Anistic. So we use these day in, day out. Flowcharts, what's going on. Kanban boards, I'll show you one of them. For example, Kanban, into Kanban, new business pipeline, etc. And it's just a bunch of useful tools that you and your team can use to kind of, replace the stuff that you'd otherwise be doing. Because I used to spend a fortune on Anistic on, these old subscriptions here, there, everywhere. We spend a lot less now. So you've got Kanban, you've got Gantt charts, you've got mind maps, you've got quick sketches, you've got lists, you've got notebooks. Notebooks are quite fun. You can just do a kind of project notebook and pull other bits and bobs in. So that's what the IT manager gives you. Not much agentic going on in there. I've got to admit, it tends to be just a bunch of software tools. The admin manager, well, we've got document signing. So you can actually say, here's the contract, click here to sign, that kind of stuff. And that, for us, replaced DocuSign. So we no longer subscribe to DocuSign. And we've got people directories in here, which is just a list of people in the organization, and some mugshots, fun really, I think, really more than anything else. Org charts, which is quite sweet. You can actually define who reports to who, etc. Better for kind of larger teams than smaller teams. In here, there we go. So you got the org charts coming up. And, one thing that we really like this is actually quite quite a small function, but really quite popular in the office. Who's in the office today? So you can actually have a quick look about who's in and who's out of the office. So look, they're the basic four you get. We call them the Fab Four. You've got Alex, your PA. We quite like that. IT manager. That's the tools that we use. Admin, company files, document signing and stuff like that. Office manager, who's in, people directory and stuff like that. It's designed for that kind of like that really kind of dull, boring admin-y stuff that you do. So, it's designed to sort of tackle that head on. And it's not the answer to everything, but it really helps. It does really help, and it starts bringing things together, and it's certainly saved us money, by cancelling, Balsamic that we used to use, Calendly, DocuSign. I think we used to use Read AI to do the meeting notes. Just cancel all of that. Draftr does all those things. And so if that appeals to you, that's what you get. That's the Fab Four. It's priced at a very kind of affordable entry kind of level price. Well, not entry level, but it's an affordable package. It's not designed to be price prohibitive. And as I say, we developed this because we needed it in Anistic, and it just makes our life easier. I hope you find it useful as well. And if it's useful in your business, brilliant. Absolutely fantastic. The other ones are coming. We got more. HR manager. We've got HR system in, holiday log, etc. Projects, project manager, performance and success manager, sales manager, finance, etc. They're all kind of like in the beta stage, and I'll cover those in other videos. They're on the more advanced package that we offer. They're not included in the kind of the standard package. I hope that works for you, and I hope it's useful. We definitely find it useful and Anistic, and we will just be developing this more and more and more during the rest of 2026 into 2027. And if you want to jump on board, more the merrier. And if you've got any feedback, my God, we need some feedback. So if you've got any comments about how the system can be improved, please feed them through. We're very, very interested to hear what you think. All right, thanks so much. See you next time.